Rakesh, student. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. So we were doing about that stratification, right? We were talking about stratification. Neha, so we have already talked about in that counseling now, मतलब orientation में that we have ecology started and students have actually उनका ना मतलब कॉलेज के एग्जाम्स और ये सारे चल रहे हैं तो स्टूडेंट आपको ऑनलाइन ज्यादा मिलेंगे ऑफलाइन इफ यू आर कंफर्टेबल ऑफलाइन यू कैन कम नो इश्यूज 3 to 4 students generally come into that and if you're comfortable online it's your choice I don't have any issue whatever they are going to ठीक है chalo so in that stratification we simply talk about that distribution of that individuals or the species in different level ठीक है so we've already talked about so first make the heading horizontal stratification horizontal stratification horizontal stratification देखो simple if we think of the stratification the word stratification is coming from the terminology strata strata means होता है layers ठीक है strata means क्या होता है layers so suppose that in any kind of ecosystem what is ecosystem simply either if we talking about the forest ecosystem either we talking about the pond ecosystem or we talking about that oceanic ecosystem that means any ecosystem or any area where the different types of or communities we can say where the different types of people or the species are living उनका किस लेवल पे डिवीजन है ठीक है ऑन व्हाट लेवल दे आर फॉर्म्ड इन दैट पर्टिकुलर लेयर सपोज दैट इफ वी टॉक अबाउट सपोज दैट फॉरेस्ट सो फॉरेस्ट में व्हाट वी सी सपोज दैट तो फॉरेस्ट में हम लोग देखते हैं देयर इज अ ग्रासेस सबसे पहले देयर इज अ एलिगीज टू ठीक है वेरी स्मॉल स्मॉल एलिगीज एंड लाइक इट देन जस्ट अबाउट देन दैट एलिगीज के ऊपर क्या है आपके ब्रायोफाइट्स है ठीक है तो ब्रायोफाइट्स को व्हाट वी कॉल दैट ग्रीन मैट्स टू so that is your bryophytes okay bryophytes we move a little bit suppose that then we call what we see the grasses ठीक है we see the grasses के बाद we see a big shrubs and herbs ठीक है we see shrubs and herbs then we see that large and the trees है ना and then we see the most dense canopy so what it is if we want to see that so this is your one strata this is your second strata this is your third strata and so on ठीक है so on what basis why we need to cover on that ecosystem or the ecology chapter it is simple because suppose that if we talk about the algae or maybe we talk about the grasses or maybe herbs that means that particular ecosystem in which they are living there are the variability of the temperature precipitation humidity and so many factors suppose that if we talk about the grasses ठीक है अगर आप ग्रासेस को बहुत हाई टेम्परेचर में ले जाओ so of course you will not able to survive ठीक है so that means what again when we have start the topic of ecosystem that means different abiotic factors impacting the biotic factors simple ठीक है right on ऐसी pond ecosystem है okay so what is a pond ecosystem suppose that okay so in that pond ecosystem this is the limnatic zone this is the lotic or the limnatic zone then we find out the sunlight or the temperature can penetrate up to a certain limit that is your called euphotic zone photic matlab photon means loud that means the depth or the layer at where the sunlight can penetrate that is called the euphotic zone then we call the profoundal zone then the bathic zone or abyssal zone so why we are differentiating these layers I'll just dictate it don't worry just understand that first okay so why we are dictating these things okay so because of thing what is the difference between all over the water is present yes all over the water is present but major abiotic factors कौन से होते हैं आपकी temperature is the major factor ठीक है so but what is the difference temperature because of that sunlight cannot penetrate that deep much into the water so because of the variation in the temperature यहाँ का जो पानी है that will be much more light है ना that will be lighter when we boil something it become lighter so when it will become lighter the oxygen concentration will be easily mixing with up it है ना so when the oxygen is easily mixing up with it that means oxygen availability is here if the oxygen availability is here and the temperature the sunlight is coming that means majority of the producers of the ecosystem जैसे कि आपके plants है ना that will grow into the euphotic zone as we go deep down the biodiversity will going to reduce. Okay, that is simply about that stratification, either if we talk about the horizontal one or we talk about that vertical one. Okay, first around horizontal stratification. A community may be divided horizontally. A community may be divided horizontally into sub-communities, which are units of units of homogeneous life forms, homogeneous life forms and ecological relations, and ecological relations. This horizontal division constitute this horizontal division constitute the zonation in the communities, the zonation in the communities, such as in shallow ponds, such as in shallow ponds. The zonation is very little, yeah, small. The zonation is very little or small. However, however, in the deep ponds, in the deep ponds and lakes, there may be recognized three zones. There may be recognized three zones. That is littoral zone, limnatic zone, and profundal zone. And profundal zone. Make it there. Diagram should be and can be at any or each point of the answers. Okay. Right. In each zone, What's the background, Neha? You have done BSc, right? Or have you done post graduation too? BSc only, right? Okay. In each zone, the organisms differ from each other, differ from each other because of because of different abiotic factors, abiotic factors and their impacts on the ecosystem, on the ecosystem, on the ecosystem. First write down littoral zone. First write down littoral zone. It is a zone between intertidal area. It is a zone between intertidal area, that is high tides and low tides. That is high tide or low tides. Full stop. This habitat develops. This habitat develops in the sheltered niche. In the sheltered niche beneath beneath loose stones. Loose stones and contain variety of variety of organisms. Variety of organisms. It is a near shore area. It is a near shore area having shallow warm and nutrient rich zone zone extending from the shore to extending from the shore to up till the rooted plants are growing. Up till rooted plants are growing. With the high sunlight penetration, and oxygen availability. With the high sunlight penetration and oxygen availability. This is a higher primer productivity populated zone. This is a higher primary productivity populated zone. Next, limnatic zone. Second, limnatic zone. That is the open water area. That is the open water area. From the surface of the water body up till the sunlight can penetrate. Up till the sunlight can penetrate. In this zone, enough light for photosynthesis process available. Therefore, majorly dominated by phytoplanktons and zooplanktons. Next, profundal zone. It is a deep dark area. Slash zone beneath the limnatic zone. Where limited amount of sunlight or no sunlight or almost no sunlight penetrates resulting hypoxic condition or no oxygen condition, hypoxic or no oxygen condition occurs. Stop. This zone is mainly inhabited by this zone is mainly inhabited by the organisms the organisms adapted for adapted for low light low light anaerobic or facultative aerobic condition, anaerobic or facultative aerobic respiratory condition, facultative respiratory conditions such as such as archibacterias such as archibacterias and decomposers. Okay, देखो simple it is that is a horizontal distribution. Suppose that this is a water area, so यहाँ पे जहाँ तक okay, so where the water types are going up and down, so that will also constitute the water zone. So that is your limnatic zone, sorry, that is your littoral zone. ठीक है, यहाँ तक आपका littoral zone होगा. वहाँ पे देखो in that littoral zone there will be very good biodiversity. Which kind of biodiversity will be there? Biodiversity मतलब living different types of species. तो यहाँ पे व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, यहाँ पे क्या है आपका लिटिल बिट सॉइल स्ट्रक्चर भी है, प्लस वाटर भी है, प्लस टेम्परेचर भी है, मतलब सनलाइट भी है, प्लस आपका यहाँ पे एग्जैक्टली ऑक्सीजन भी है, एंड प्लस अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ स्मॉल ऑक्सीजन, जैसे कि क्रस्टेशियंस कैन आल्सो बी फाउंड देयर, है ना. सो मेनी क्रोकोडाइल्स, सॉरी, सो मेनी आपके ऑर्थोपोड्स इंसेक्ट्स आल्सो कैन बी फाउंड देयर. So whenever we talk about the horizontal stratification, littoral zone will be the most highest verification. Even limnatic zone also have that good. यहाँ की बात एक्चुअली लिम्नेटिक जोन को आपका ये प्रीलिम्स का भी क्वेश्चन है, यूपीएससी एमसीक्यू का क्वेश्चन है, इट्स नॉट ओनली द योर ऑप्शनल. सो लिम्नेटिक जोन और लिटोरल जोन में एक्चुअल डिफरेंस क्या होता है? लिम्नेटिक जोन इज प्रॉपर ओपन सी वाटर जोन, जहां तक आपकी सॉइल, जैसे कि सपोज दैट इफ यू हैव सीन द, यू आर फ्रॉम यूपी, Rajasthan, yeah. So suppose that if you are go to the coastal areas, so from where you see the tidal waves come and not going, that means that the core water area, जहाँ पे आपका proper open water sea है. So that is also पानी देती है. So that is also like core, यहाँ पे आपका जो sunlight है that can able to directly penetrate. यहाँ पे सनलाइट विल बी डायरेक्टली एबल टू पेनिट्रेट इनटू दैट ओपन सी वाटर. सो कंपेयर टू दिस एरिया, यहाँ पे आपकी एटलीस्ट फाइटो या एटलीस्ट आपके जो प्रोड्यूसर्स होंगे वो कम होंगे, क्योंकि वाटर अवेलेबल है. ऑफ कोर्स हाइड्रोला वैली सिनेरिया जो फ्री फ्लोटिंग प्लांट्स है वो ऑर्गेनिज्म होंगे, बट जो थोड़ी बहुत भी रूटेड ऑर्गेनिज्म होंगे, रूटेड प्लांट होंगे, दे कैन नॉट ग्रो विद इट. और प्रोफंडल जोन तो आपका लिम्नेटिक जोन के जस्ट नीचे वाला जोन आपका प्रोफंडल जोन है. नेक्स्ट आई डोंट वर्टिकल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन. वर्टिकल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, vertical gradients in environmental factors, vertical gradients in environmental factors such as such as availability of sunlight, availability of sunlight, temperature, temperature, oxygen concentration, oxygen concentration, and so on and so on, bring about a recognizable stratification in water bodies, a recognizable stratification. यहाँ अगर फास्ट है तो बता देना, I'll be slow. Okay? Okay. Recognizable stratification in water bodies, particularly in marine ecosystem, particularly in marine ecosystem, comma, deep water lakes, deep water lakes, and also forest ecosystem, and also forest ecosystem. Next time look, such as oceanic region can be classified, can be classified mainly into two zones, mainly into two zones, that is, that is bathyl zone, पेज छोड़ देना, and abyssal zone, and abyssal zone. देखो, Ashali, Manisha, and Neha, you too. ज्योग्राफी पढ़िए, ज्योग्राफी हो गया कंप्लीट आप लोगों का? Ashali,
Yes, ma'am.
ज्योग्राफी हो गया है?
Yes, ma'am. It's not complete, but yeah, I'm studying it.
Okay, you are studying. Okay, fine, good. So in the geography, what we have covered, the different land morphology of the oceans, right? है ना? बताओ चलो. What it is?
Ma'am, the benthing zone is exactly the ocean or the sea floor, and abyssal zone is the water column above it where there is no penetration of water, of sunlight.
Okay, okay, that's a different thing. But still, abhi I'm not asking about this. What it is in that oceanic land of oceanic features. This is the one of the topic of your geography: oceanic feature and land features. है ना? So what it is? This is your continent area and this is your oceanic area. Okay. So what this point is called? Estuarine area. Okay. Other than that, when we were talking about that oceanic features, so in that sense, what we call it? No issue, no issues. Aishali, okay, very good. Exactly. Manisha. So that is your actually, bacha, continental shelf, continental edge. Then this is the oceanic shelf, right? So that is called the edge. Edge matlab, suppose that if we talk about, so this is your continent, okay? Yeah, suppose that because we are talking about that with respect to the oceans. So this is a, think of the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats, because in your ecology, the next topic will become the biodiversity, okay? So think of the Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats, okay? So this is your land part or the continent part. As soon as you are entering into here, so that will be the edge of the continent, okay? That will be called the continent edge. So that means when we were talking about that, and यहाँ पे फिर आपका oceanic basin आ जाता है, फिर oceanic shelf आ जाता है, continental shelf, there are different oceanic features. That's a core geography, ठीक है? So when we talk about the bathyal or abyssal zone, these two zones completely comes into that area. Where? Right on. Bathyal zone के आगे सामने लिखो. The region of continental slope and rise. ये क्या हो गया आपका? कॉन्टिनेंटल. अभी क्या है? ये आपका एज हो गया. दैट इज योर कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल्फ या एज. ठीक है, सॉरी, एज शेल्फ भी है. अब ये क्या हो रहा है? ग्रेजुअली, यस, दिस इज अ वाटर बॉडी, बट यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? द कॉन्टिनेंट इज ग्रेजुअली स्लोपिंग डाउन, है ना? सो दैट एरिया ऑफ द कॉन्टिनेंटल स्लोप और ओशियानिक राइज. अच्छा, यहां तक सपोज दैट इफ यू आर सीइंग दैट कॉन्टिनेंटल स्लोप and up till here we are calling it oceanic rise, because compared to suppose that agar aap suppose that is look at this area and now look at this area, so this area will be maximum into the depth of the oceans, not into the continent, right? And this portion is maximum into the portion of the continent, not into the ocean. So that is called the continental rise, sorry, continental, yahan usko bolte hain oceanic rise. ठीक है, right on. The region of continental slope and rise, while the abyssal zone is, abyssal zone के सामने लिखो, the area of ocean deeps, the area of ocean deeps, deep, ये वाला आपका abyssal zone है. Suppose that if you want to see it here, ठीक है, ये आपका ocean zone है. So यहाँ तक आपका bathyal zone हो गया. ठीक है, अभी डायग्राम नहीं बनाएंगे because अभी we will write that Q40, this 40 and everything, then we are going to write about that. And this is the proper abyssal zone. So bathyal zone is the actually confluence or we can say the combined area estuarine exactly आपका ये है वहां पे होता है ठीक है. So bathyal zone is actually the confluence zone between that land or the continental and the oceanic ocean. Okay, so this okay हम लोग इसको ना और water bodies में generally consider नहीं कर सकते. Suppose that think of the pond. So pond में it is not like that. Even think of the river. Suppose that you are going and this is your river. So river में there will not be that much deep the continental shelf edge rise इतना नहीं होता है. So generally this kind of division bathyal or abyssal zone it will conclude into the oceanic. ये आपका अगेन ज्योग्राफी का क्वेश्चन आ रखा है. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द bathyal एंड abyssal? ठीक है, नेक्स्ट राइट ऑन. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट देखो. इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइट पेनिट्रेशन, इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइट पेनिट्रेशन the oceanic region the oceanic region can be vertically divided into upper thin euphotic zone, upper thin euphotic zone, ब्रैकेट में लिखो, where the light can penetrate, where the light can penetrate, and a vastly thicker bracket close and vastly thicker permanently darker zone, permanently darker zone, that is a photic zone, that is a photic zone. ब्रैकेट में लिखो a photic zone. This include both bathyal and abyssal zone, bathyal and abyssal zone. Into the more next point, into the more vertical zones and oceans, into the more vertical zone of oceans, it can again divide it into pelagic zone, pelagic zone, ब्रैकेट में लिखो whole body of water, whole body of water, and benthic zone, and benthic zone, deep down or bottom of the water, deep down or bottom of the water. Pelagic zone can be further classified into pelagic zone can be further classified into different strata, different strata on the basis of community living there, on the basis of community living there, such as first phytoplanktons, phytoplanktons, second zooplanktons, zooplanktons, phytoplanktons में you guys can write the example now. चलो phytoplankton के साथ से ब्रैकेट में लिख लो the producers such as diatoms, the producers such as diatoms, dinoflagellates, dinoflagellates, green algae, etc. green algae, etc. zooflagellates में लिखो zooplanktons, the consumers such as foraminiferans, foraminiferans, radiolaria, radiolaria, annelids, worms, annelids, worms, etc., etc. Next, third, nectons. Next, third, nectons. These are the free swimming marine animals. These are the free swimming marine animals which are essentially independent of water movements. Which are essentially independent of water movements. Next, benthos. Next, nectons के बाद benthos. Benthos are bottom dwellers. Benthos are bottom dwellers of benthic environment. Of benthic environment. They are mainly sessile forms. They are mainly sessile forms such as limpets, chitons, etc. Add one more point, stanza change करके. The vertical stratification is also observed in terrestrial ecosystem. Is also observed in terrestrial ecosystem. In forest community, it includes mainly 5 subdivisions. First, subterranean community या subdivision, subterranean. Subterranean community or subdivision. Second, forest floor. Third, herbaceous vegetation. Fourth, shrubs. And fifth, trees. Subterranean में थोड़ा सा लिख लो. Actually, where is the subterranean? जैसे कि suppose that this is a forest ecosystem again. ठीक है? So we know that trees, then shrubs, then herbs, and this grasses, and this is the subterranean. ठीक है? That will also include in the forest community because यहाँ पे क्या depend कर रहा है आपका humus. What is humus? Anyone? Humification पे there is a forest services में there is a question has been asked. What is humification? What is humus? Humus is moisturized dead organic matter. Yes, no, detritus not. Detritus are the concept. I'll explain it. Aishali and Banisha, what is humus?
Ma'am, it is the decomposed matter or decomposed organic matter.
Okay, so just a general discussion because we are talking about the ecology. Okay, so tell me whatever guys you know. Okay, remains after decomposition. Okay, Manisha, good. So we know that suppose that this is your earth. ठीक है, बायोडाइवर्सिटी आपका कॉन्सेप्ट है, दिस इज योर इक्वेटर 0 डिग्री लाइन, ठीक है, इतना तो ज्योग्राफी एवरीवन वी हैव कवर्ड दैट. So we know that this is your called equator, equator के nearby area, and this is your 23.5, that is your tropic of Cancer, and this is 23 and tropic of Capricorn. ठीक है, so in that whole India is located in here, because tropic of Capricorn, because tropic of Cancer goes to the 8 states of the India. ठीक है, so which type of climate India has? Tropical. ठीक है, that means nearby that equatorial area that we call the tropical. That means, अच्छा, tell me the another question, that in that whole world, ठीक है, majority of the forest or the biodiversity things are found in which zone? Equator. Online, answer me what फटाफट. Majority of your forest ecosystem or the biodiversity found in which zone?
Tropical zone.
Tropical zone, yes. Tropical ecosystem. Yes, near the equator. So that means the concept of humus. What is humus? The dead organic material. Simple. The dead organic material. जैसे कि suppose that the leaves है ना, जो आपकी trees होती हैं, उन सबका एक of course एक life span होता है. So after become fall off, वो आके soil में mix up हो जाती है. If you have the plants or if you have the pots in your home, so what you say कि जो उनकी leaves होती है, died or dead leaves होती है, you should not throw it away. You should just leave it on the pot or the soil. So gradually it will mix up and it's a kind of the natural fertilizers. ठीक है, got it? So humus, if suppose that if we are saying that this area, because Amazon forest है ना, in your South America occurs in that zone only. Africa, majority of your majority. Okay, so when we talk about the biodiversity or the type of climate, there's a multiple factors. The factors of again warm ocean current, cold ocean current overall. But here in the zoology, we are only going to talk about the temperature or the type of climate. We are not going to talk about that oceanic factors and all. Okay. So humus is a content which are actually because of the forest only, और मतलब forest और maybe the अगर जहाँ biodiversity ज़्यादा होगी वहाँ की humus ज़्यादा होगी. See, humus is a type of quality present in the soil. We say that ना this particular soil has a good humus quality. So if the good humus quality, then it will be मतलब वहाँ पे बहुत सारे vegetation. So the statement in your PYQs that in equator or in equatorial zone, climate type of soil, the maximum humus content is found. The maximum humus content is found. Is that a statement true or false? Is a statement true? Manisha, true or false? Ashali, you too?
Ma'am, it is true.
Okay. Manisha? This is false. Why? Dekho. That is true. Suppose that if I am saying that in my village, suppose that there is a very good like type of food we have. Why? Because the food का जो raw material है, जैसे कि the raw material of the humus is a forest, dead leaves or the biodiversity ultimately, उन्हीं का dead organism, the dead part or the decaying part is mixing with the soil, that is we call the humus. Okay. So if I am saying that my village or my suppose that town, it is a very good agricultural field. Suppose that I am belonging from that Gangetic belt, ठीक है, जो आपका अच्छा खासा agriculture zone है. So that means I have the multiple types of crops. Good, fine. Direct correlation, simple. But there's another factor. Humus actually बनता है आपके dead organic leaves से. But do not forget, तभी I have asked that in that equatorial zone, in that equatorial the tropical climate, the sun rays is actually directly falling in it. Okay, so we know that the shifting of the sun, if you know this concept, that in your earth equator, on the equator there's a two time, March and September. Acha, we know this concept now. The sun rays are actually shifting between that tropic of Cancer to the tropic of Capricorn. We know that now. That is why the India or the such kind of climate, such kind of country which come into that zone facing that summer and the winter. Like why do we face summer? मार्च से अप्रैल जैसे कि अभी स्टार्ट हो चुका है, मई एंड जून. So the position of sun on the June, on the position of sun where in that 22nd of June, the position of sun is directly on that tropic of Cancer. That's why we देखो अभी तक हम लोग क्या फेस कर रहे थे यहाँ पे, अभी तक मार्च में वी विल फेसिंग की ठीक है थोड़ा सा हल्का सा विंटर है. So now we know that earth is little bit tilted. So now we know that the sun position is little shifting. It is going that March, April, June. अब जून यहाँ पे है ठीक है, जून के बाद अगेन जुलाई, सभी क्या होता है जुलाई में, जुलाई अगस्त सितंबर वी आर फेसिंग. यहाँ पे भी क्या हो गया, जून में क्या हो गया, यहाँ पे there's a very high temperature. Because of the very high temperature the pressure become very low. Now the pressure become very low, so the winds coming from the southern ocean, तभी तो हम लोग बोलते हैं इंडिया का साउथ वेस्ट मानसून, the winds monsoon coming from that higher pressure to the lower pressure. And here this is a condition of the lower pressure है ना. टेम्परेचर जब बहुत इंक्रीज हो जाता है, सपोज दैट बॉइल वाटर है ना, तो यहाँ का टेम्परेचर जून तक क्या हो गया, बहुत इंक्रीज हो गया. सो काइंड ऑफ कंडीशन हियर इट इज फॉर्मिंग, इट इज वेरी लो प्रेशर. सो विंड्स आर अट्रैक्टिंग फ्रॉम दैट हायर. अभी यहाँ पे जो सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर है, दिस इज योर सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर. सो सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर का जो प्रेशर है इट इज वेरी हाई. सो विंड्स आर मूविंग फ्रॉम हायर प्रेशर टू द लोअर प्रेशर. दैट इज व्हाई वी कॉल द साउथ वेस्ट मानसून. ठीक है. सो यहाँ पे जून के बाद जुलाई, अगस्त एंड सितंबर. सितंबर पे अगेन कहां पर आता है आपका, इक्वेटोरियल पे. सो दैट मींस व्हाट वी आर सेइंग. एंड सितंबर से अगेन, सितंबर के बाद अक्टूबर, नवंबर एंड दिसंबर. दिसंबर में आपका कहां पर रहती है सन की पोजीशन, सन की पोजीशन नाउ इट इज हियर ट्रॉपिक ऑफ कैप्रिकॉर्न. ठीक है. So what we are, why I have said that, that's why in December में India की location, what is India की location, in the tropic of Cancer. That is why India is facing very cold है ना in that December, because sun क्या कर रहा है, sun heat दे रहा है, और sun तो अभी कहां पर है, tropic of Capricorn में. So that is not only the shifting in position, that is why it is the shifting of sun position over all the earth, it is actually deciding the type of climate. So what we can conclude it here, the maximum time sun is at your equator in that whole year, in that March and September, sun 2 times आपका equator में आ रहा है. Suppose that even if the sun position is here, मान लो ठीक है, still अब ऐसा तो है नहीं कि the sun rays are very restricted in a very limited amount, ऐसा तो है नहीं, right? Sun की rays are spreading even when the position of sun is at the tropic of Cancer or the tropic of Capricorn. It is giving not even exact but a little amount of heat to equator. That means what we can conclude it, that equator, the tropic of equator or equatorial climate or the nearby zone having that very high temperature throughout the year, can we say that? And also because the temperature will be very high, so temperature, और यहाँ पे क्या है आपके majority of oceans भी हैं, so वहां से क्या होता है, a good precipitation it cause. ठीक है. so अभी देखो, तो good temperature and good precipitation is a basic thing for the vegetation or the forest. so because of that area, इस वाले जोन में मेजॉरिटी ऑफ आपके जो है वो फॉरेस्ट है वो यहाँ पर लोकेट करते हैं. गुड गुड, नो इश्यूज. बट यू नो व्हाट गाइस, बिकॉज ऑफ द वेरी हाई टेम्परेचर एंड द वेरी हाई प्रेसिपिटेशन, द टाइप ऑफ सॉइल इज नॉट गुड हियर. क्यों? सपोज दैट आपने क्या किया, फॉर द एग्जाम्पल आपने एक पॉट लगाया, ठीक है, यस आपने पॉट करा, यहाँ पे आपने बहुत हाई टेम्परेचर दिन भर, आप नो मैटर व्हाट आप कितना भी एग्रीकल्चर उसमें अच्छा कर रहे हो, एंड आपने जब भी पानी, जब भी आपने बारिश किया, आप ऑलमोस्ट हमेशा ही पानी डाल रहे हो. सो इसका जो भी कंटेंट है, द सॉइल कंटेंट, द ह्यूमस कंटेंट, यहाँ के जो बैक्टीरिया होते हैं वो बहुत जल्दी डिग्रेड कर देते हैं. फॉर द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द ह्यूमस, डेट्राइटिवोरस जो आपने बोला, दैट इज अ डिकम्पोजिशन एक्टिविटी, दैट शुड बी नॉट दैट मच वेरी फास्ट, इतनी फास्ट नहीं होनी चाहिए. तो क्या होता है, जब भी लिटर्स या डेड ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल ग्रो करते हैं यहाँ पे, बिकॉज ऑफ दैट वेरी गुड कंडीशन फॉर दैट एनी काइंड ऑफ बायो कंडीशन जो है, यहाँ की अपर इन्वायरमेंटल कंडीशन इज वेरी गुड फॉर द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. ठीक है. इसीलिए अगर आप देखोगे तो मलेरिया के केसेस, अफ्रीका इज वन ऑफ दैट रीजन जहाँ पे मॉइस्चर है, अगर प्रेसिपिटेशन अच्छा है तो मॉइस्चर अच्छा है. if the moisture is good, that means plant can survive, obviously, right? So that is why, but if the plant can survive, the other life organism also can survive. That is why ये आपका इकोनॉमिक जोलॉजी का कॉन्सेप्ट है, that why majority of जो आपके ऐसे डिजीज है जैसे कि मलेरिया, डेंगू, they are originating in the Africa region, because Africa region is coming into that equatorial, है ना. तो वहां का जो मॉइस्चर है, आप किसी भी इंसेक्ट्स को उठा के देख लो, इवन आप उसको उठा लो, मस्कीटो को उठा लो, मस्कीटो इज फ्लाई, बट मस्कीटो की जो लार्वास होते हैं, दे आर एक्चुअली लिविंग इन द वाटर, है ना. दैट इज जब भी मलेरिया की केसेस इंक्रीजिंग, व्हेनेवर द केसेस ऑफ द मलेरिया इज इंक्रीजिंग, द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ एनी स्टेट और द यूटी, सपोज दैट दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट स्टार्ट अनाउंसिंग कि कहीं भी वाटर कलेक्ट होने ना दे, है ना, कूलर में पानी ना रहे, समथिंग लाइक दैट, बिकॉज सच काइंड ऑफ एनवायरमेंट सपोर्ट्स द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. तो बायोडाइवर्सिटी मैक्सिमम है, नो डाउट अबाउट इट. बट ह्यूमस, ये आपका पीवाईक्यू का क्वेश्चन है, ठीक है, इकोलॉजी पढ़ रहे हैं तो प्रीलिम्स के क्वेश्चन भी तो हमारे उसमें होने चाहिए, है ना. जैसे कि मान लो किसी बच्चे ने पीएसआईआर ली होगी तो उसका पॉलिटी अच्छा होगा, हमने जियोलॉजी ली है तो हमारा भी तो वो साइंस पोर्शन अच्छा होना चाहिए. सो आपका जो इक्वेटोरियल क्लाइमेट है वहां पे बहुत ज्यादा टेम्परेचर है. सिर्फ द टेम्परेचर इज वेरी हाई, द बैक्टीरियल एक्टिविटीज आर वेरी हाई, सो दे जस्ट डिग्रेड वेरी फास्ट. एंड रहा बचा जो कंटेंट बचता है बिकॉज ऑफ द वेरी हाई प्रेसिपिटेशन, इट जस्ट फ्लो इट ऑफ. समझ आ गया ऑनलाइन? नो, नहीं है ना. अच्छा हाँ, लाइक ओवरऑल ट्रॉपिकल क्लाइमेट, यस एग्जैक्टली. जैसे कि एग्जैक्टली अगर आप इसको बेटर बोलो तो सब ट्रॉपिकल क्लाइमेट हैव अ वेरी गुड ह्यूमस, है ना. जैसे कि ये वाला जोन जैसे आप आओगे यहाँ पे there's a good enough amount of temperature in the climate, so it supports a good amount of biodiversity. इंडिया में जो आपका, when we talk about the biodiversity, India has a good biodiversity. Almost India has been divided into 10 biogeographic zone, ठीक है. तो जैसे बट यहाँ की ह्यूमस में भी है कंटेंट, बिकॉज इतना हाई टेम्परेचर नहीं है और इतनी हाई प्रेसिपिटेशन इज नॉट, सो दैट ह्यूमस फॉर्मेशन कैन नॉट सस्टेन. द बेसिक रीजन इज दैट ह्यूमस फॉर्मेशन कैन नॉट सस्टेन. ह्यूमस बनता तो है बट वो बहुत जल्दी क्या होता है, डिग्रेड हो जाता है, ठीक है. दैट इज सब ट्रॉपिकल क्लाइमेट, ठीक है. इसीलिए आफ्टर द इक्वेटोरियल, अब देखो पोलर एरियाज में क्या है, अब आप ऐसे बोलो तो पोलर एरियाज तो डज नॉट हैव सच थिंग लाइक दैट. सो पोलर एरियाज में पहली बात तो बैक्टीरिया ही बहुत कम है. एंड अगेन किसी भी चीज का सस्टेनेबिलिटी वी कैन सी द टू फैक्टर. फर्स्ट इज अ रॉ फैक्टर अवेलेबल, यस रॉ फैक्टर अवेलेबल, बट पोलर एरिया में तो रॉ फैक्टर्स ही अवेलेबल नहीं है. देयर इज अ वेरी लो टेम्परेचर सो दैट लाइफ कैन नॉट सर्वाइव इन अ वेरी डाइवर्स वे. वी हैव सीन दैट पोलर एरिया इज अ वेरी स्पेसिफिक काइंड ऑफ एनिमल्स और द प्लांट, जैसे कि कॉनिफेरस ट्रीज, है ना, विद द एनिमल्स विद द ब्लैबर्स. तो बहुत ज्यादा डाइवर्सिटी नहीं है ना इक्वेटोरियल में बहुत सारे. Even the population and even the people living in that climate temperate or the polar areas do not face that problem of mosquito or the dengue. हो ही नहीं सकता वहां पे. larva cannot survive in the ice ना, so they cannot even survive over there. That's why biodiversity is actually low. ठीक है. चलो हाँ उसमें देख लो थोड़ा सा सबटेरेनियन सब डिवीजन में. रिच इन ह्यूमस, rich in humus with roots of plants, soil, fungi, with roots of plants, soil, fungi, bacteria, protozoans, etc. Protozoans, etc. Next, make the heading ecotone and H effect. Next, make the heading ecotone and H effect. देखो, actually we are talking about that community की characteristics. ठीक है. So stratification is also one of the characteristics of the community. Again, I have said that it is very rare because it is not only the responsibility of the syllabus completion कि community का characteristic पूछा जाए. It's very rare. ठीक है. But the different topics suppose that we are writing, stratification has been asked. Yes, ecotone और edge effect तो multiple time पूछा जा चुका. But it is actually a characteristics of ecotone and edge effect. Make the heading. देखो, in a very simple, we know the content, but we need to have that enough. We know the concept, but we need to have the content to write in there. अगर suppose if I'm asking you what is ecotone, even you can tell me what is ecotone. Exactly. इसको थोड़े से और better word में if we want to use it, transition zone between the two different ecosystems, right? Suppose that अगर हम लोग इसको बोले, अच्छा, what are the characteristics? Suppose that if we talking about again, आपका estuaries, आपका coastal lands. What is the difference between the estuaries and coastal land? Yes. Anyone online? Again, geography, थोड़ा सा है ना? Okay, tell me. Actually, yeah.
Estuaries are transition zone between oceanic and terrestrial ecosystem.
Okay.
That you can say.
I know.
And continental
Good, very nice. Exactly, you are going correctly. चलो मैं एक्सप्लेन कर देती हूँ, ठीक है. देखो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, वी नो दैट इंडिया, ठीक है, इंडिया हैव दैट वेस्टर्न कोस्ट एंड ईस्टर्न कोस्ट, ठीक है. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द वेस्ट कोस्ट एंड ईस्ट कोस्ट? आई एम टेलिंग यू, वेस्ट कोस्ट इज फॉर्मिंग द estuaries and east coast are forming the deltas. Why? No bacha.
On eastern side only Narmada.
Yes, Narmada and Tapi. ठीक है, ओके फाइन. अदर देन दिस, देखो द बेसिक डिफरेंस यहाँ पे भी आपका, दिस इज अ कॉन्टिनेंट प्लस ओशियन, ठीक है, दिस इज ऑल्सो द कॉन्टिनेंट प्लस ओशियन, ठीक है. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन बोथ? दिस इज अगेन योर ज्योग्राफी क्वेश्चन, that what is the difference between that east flowing and the west flowing river. So when you write that what is the difference between the east flowing and west flowing river, the first thing you write about that east flowing rivers, first of all they are carrying the very long, जैसे कि suppose that गंगा, यमुना, महानदी, यहाँ पे अमर कंटक है ना, अमर कंटक से महानदी, गोदावरी, कृष्णा, कावेरी, ठीक. इधर आ जाओ, नर्मदा, तापी, माही, लूनी, शरावती, यहाँ पे गोवा में आपकी छोटी सी नदी है. सो बाय दिस स्ट्रक्चर व्हाट वी कैन कंक्लूड, Ashali, what we can conclude here? Yes, good. What we can conclude here, Neha? Just by seeing this structure. No, no, bacha. Just simple tell me what you can see the difference. Path है. Exactly. So अब जो आपकी ईस्ट फ्लोइंग रिवर है, एंड वी नो दैट आर कॉन्टिनेंट, आर सब कॉन्टिनेंट लिटिल बिट टिल्टेड, है ना. सो जो आपकी ईस्ट फ्लोइंग रिवर है, दे आर कैरिंग वेरी लॉन्ग पाथवे, वाइल जो वेस्ट फ्लोइंग रिवर है, दे आर कैरिंग, नर्मदा तापी तो रिफ्ट वैलीज है, दो उसके बीच में बहती है, स्पेशली नर्मदा रिवर, ठीक है. सो व्हाट वी कैन सी हियर, जो आपकी ईस्ट फ्लोइंग रिवर है वो आपकी, दे आर कवरिंग अ वेरी लॉन्ग पाथवे. दैट मीन सपोज दैट अगर मैंने बोला नेहा यहाँ से यहाँ पानी आप फ्लो कर दो, so it will, यहाँ पे भी there must be some kind of dust, but it will not that much, but I will say कि यहाँ से यहाँ पानी flow कर दो, so that means whatever amount of the dust or better say the sedimentation है ना, they are carrying. तो longer path में the basic difference is that कि ये जो आपकी east flowing river है, they are forming deltas. Deltas क्या है, यहाँ तक they are covering that much long pathway, so that when they come to the mouth of the oceans, यहाँ पे इतना ज्यादा sedimentation ये लेके आ जाती है, so that they just divide into their forming the various distributaries, ठीक है. अगेन देखो, सुंदरबन डेल्टा, वेस्ट बंगाल, कोलकाता, बांग्लादेश. तो सुंदरबन डेल्टा वी नो दैट दिस इज वन ऑफ दैट एरिया हैविंग द वेरी हाई रिच बायोडाइवर्सिटी. व्हाई? Exactly, due to the very good sedimentation. Sundarban Delta, it is named because of the Sundari tree. It is a mangrove, right? So that means यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं है? Because first of all, this is covering very short pathway, and this is just exact. So overall, because of all this impact, Manisha has said that. Again, you also said that the salt content differentiation it will be there. Even when we talk about that, यहाँ पे Arabian Sea and that Bay of Bengal Sea, there is a little bit, because fresh water जो है rivers जो है वो they are carrying the fresh water, ठीक है. So if you test the water of here and here, you will see the differentiation in the water qualities too, ठीक है. इसीलिए देखो, connect everything, you can just answer it in your environment paper also, ठीक है. That is why जो आपका ocean desalination plant है, ठीक है, that means to use the oceanic water by the desalinizing, because we know that's the difference between that. वो कहाँ पर establish किया गया आपका? चेन्नई में. that is only चेन्नई, that is only ईस्टर्न घाट, ठीक है. सो एस्चुरीज और डेल्टा में डिफरेंस ये है दैट एस्चुरीज क्या, एस्चुरीज में आपका सीधे कंटेंट, वहां का सबसे पहले तो सॉल्ट डिफरेंशिएशन है, सेकंड यहाँ पे सेडिमेंटेशन कम है, इट इज अ डायरेक्ट. तो इफ यू टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट kind of biodiversity, तो we majorly focus on the east, not only the west, ठीक है. of course you are from the India, you are giving the paper of UPSC. इकोलॉजी का सिर्फ एक ये पोर्शन है जो थोड़ा सा आपको करंट से भी नहीं कवर करता, मतलब इन्वायरमेंट से कवर करता है, ठीक है. समझ आ गया? चलो. एंड इकोटोन यही है, इकोटोन में एक्चुअली वी डू नॉट, एस्चुरीज भी आपका इकोटोन का एग्जांपल है और डेल्टास भी आपका इकोटोन का एग्जांपल है, ठीक है. देयर इज अ बोथ. अगेन इफ यू टॉक अदर देन दिस, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट दैट व्हाट इज इकोटोन, तो इकोटोन आपका एक सपोज दैट जैसे कि फॉरेस्ट क्या है, जैसे कि आपने देखा अमेजॉन फॉरेस्ट है, फिर सपोज दैट यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा एरिया, फिर आपका ओशियन शुरू हो जाता है, या फिर ऐसे कंसीडर कर लो ओशियन आपका ग्रासलैंड ऑल्सो अ टाइप ऑफ इकोसिस्टम, दैट मीन्स, या फिर इसमें कंसीडर करो, सो जो यहाँ के लोग होंगे, ठीक है, ये आपका सपोज दैट कॉन्टिनेंटल एरिया, ये लिटिल कोस्टल एरिया, और ये आपका वाटर एरिया, ठीक है। सो जो यहाँ का सपोज दैट दिस इज योर इकोटोन, इतना तो समझ आ गया। सो व्हाट वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड, यहाँ पे आपका फॉरेस्ट है या ग्रासलैंड है, व्हाटएवर है। लैंड एंड एक्वेटिक, सो यहाँ के जो एरियाज के एनिमल्स होंगे, ऑर्गेनिज्म होंगे, they can shift to there also, right, and they can shift to there also, okay? But they are living in here, amphibians, right, good, very good. But the thing is here that the species or the animal or the organism living over there, they adapt a specific kind of features. So इसीलिए first character आपका इकोटोन पे होता है, because it is a common zone between the both two different type of ecosystem, and both different type of ecosystem organism can survive there. So that is why very high or rich in the biodiversity. ठीक है, first, and second thing is that they adapt, they develop specific feature, क्योंकि यहाँ के ऑर्गेनिज्म को they have to have tolerate that harsh climate of here, and they have to have tolerate the tidal zone of this year, so they adapt the specific kind of characteristics. यही चीजें हमें सिर्फ इकोटोन और एज इफेक्ट में लिखनी है, ठीक है। एंड ये जो इफेक्ट है, because of the effect of the both transition zone, which characters they are developing, that is called the edge effect, ठीक है। so edge effect is one of the characteristics of the ecotone, that's it, we have to just write about it। फिर हम लोग बायोडाइवर्सिटी स्टार्ट करेंगे। right, ecotone in the ecocline, that is bracket में लिख लो, gradient of ecosystem, gradient of ecosystem, the line of demarcation clash, the line of demarcation clash, the boundary line between the two different types of communities, which is often very very difficult, in a view of the chances for overlapping of one community or another, such such demarcation will be conspicuous only when the dominance of the adjacent communities show clear and characteristic differences, and this transition zone between two or more diverse communities, called ecotone, okay। देखो, what we have written, we have not only written that is a transition zone between the two different types of communities, we have written कि यहाँ पे there is a specific development of that specific characteristics, जब तक ये characteristics when the suppose that organism है ना, यहाँ का कुछ shift हुआ, when these organism will not develop until it will not develop the specific characteristics which are going to dominate over there. ऐसा नहीं कि इधर शिफ्ट हो जाए तो इधर हो जाए. Until that particular characteristics organism which develop specific kind of characteristics, तब तक हम इसको ecotone नहीं बोलेंगे, या तब तक we will not going to talk about edge species or ecotone species. ठीक है, चलो right on. An ecotone is a zone of junction or a transition area. Zone of junction or a transition area between two diverse ecosystem where where the two communities meet where the two communities meet and integrate and integrate and evolve as a specific characteristics and evolve as a specific characteristics. Just 1 minute. right on. Next, characteristics of ecotone. बना लिया, समझ आ गया? यही representation. It's not something difficult, right? So whenever you are writing or when you are writing the answer, please make such small representation. Diagrams give you the brownie points. ठीक है? Zoology ऐसे subject लेने का फायदा ये है कि आपको extra marks मिलते हैं. And how do you get the extra marks? By making such diagrams. Before than that, whenever we have completed the statement on a topic, we have showed that how to make the diagrams. Okay. Next, right on. Characteristics of ecotone. Characteristics of ecotone. First, the ecotones may be narrower or wider. narrower और wider. इसके एग्जांपल में आप लोग कुछ भी लिख सकते हो, ठीक है? जैसे कि फॉरेस्ट इकोसिस्टम और लैंड के बीच में आप ग्रासलैंड इकोसिस्टम लिख दो, या कोस्टल एग्जांपल ऐसे लिख सकते हो, कोस्टल इकोसिस्टम, एस्चुरीज, डेल्टा, ये सारे इसके एग्जांपल है, ठीक है? ऑल्दो वी ट्राई टू कवर इट इन द पॉइंट फॉर्म. It may be narrower or wider, which may extend to a very narrow area. May extend to very narrow area. Such as estuaries, or to a wider or the large areas, or to a wider or large areas, such as deltas or grassland ecosystem, such as deltas or grassland ecosystem. Just highlight this now because we have to show the transition, right? So we are trying to show that specific type of species which are finding in that ecotone zone, it is very constant, but here they are increasing, okay? Because it's the number of it. Just add this line. Diversity. Next point. It has condition intermediate. It has conditions intermediate to adjacent ecosystem. To adjacent ecosystem. Hence, it also shows. Hence, it also shows the zone of tension. Underline that. Hence, it also shows the zone of tension. Next, the species of the ecotone has higher diversity. The species of the ecotone has higher diversity than either of the main diversity ecosystem, than either of the main ecosystem or main communities, than either of the main communities. Which is not directly controlled by the microclimate. Next, the well-developed ecotone contains some organisms which are entirely different from that of adjoining communities. Next. The species of the ecotone, the species of the ecotone do not only get impact by, do not only get impact by or the confluence of, or the confluence of the community A and B, the community A or B, but but it is also, but it also, it also depends, it also depends on various microclimatic factor, but it also depends on various microclimatic factors. Accordingly, accordingly, the specific adaptive characters develop. The specific adaptive characters develop. Last, species variation at ecotone. Species variation at ecotone is generally very high. Is generally very high. Example, mangroves. Example, mangroves. Next, make the heading. Formation of ecotones. Formation of ecotones. तो लिख लो, बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है. Suppose that ecotone पे if 10 marker questions comes on the ecotone. So what you have to do whenever the 10 marker or such questions comes, you have to show the multiple headings in that. That means diverse aspect, क्योंकि जो उनका model answer होगा, so they have the जैसे कि suppose that if I am simply telling the wood, so what is the wood, type of wood, how the forming of wood, है ना? So that is a multiple dimension you have to cover to get the more marks. Ecotone के बारे में you know that already they know कि you are writing that optional, so you have the basic kind of knowledge, but how efficient you can write, so that is why simple. The formation of ecotone, यहाँ पे natural, human made or anthropogenic, human made or anthropogenic, या human induced या anthropogenic induced, जो भी लिखना. Natural में write down sharp change in abiotic factors, sharp change in abiotic factors, comma, physical barriers or specific landforms which create the transition zone, such as grassland, या estuaries development. Estuaries लिखो, grassland will write there, such as estuaries development, या estuaries area, common delta formation, human induced में लिखो, majorly formed due to, yes sure you can.
Right now the class, can I talk to you later?
Human induced, majorly formed due to effects such as land clearing, intensive afforestation activities, habitat fragmentation, habitat fragmentation, and so on, and so on. Example, example. Grassland, grassland formation, grassland formation for agriculture clearing activities. Grassland formation for agriculture clearing activities by intense deforestation. By intense deforestation. Next, types of ecotone. Types of ecotone. So basically what we are saying that ecotone is simple the transition. The transition can be with respect to the salt, with respect to the temperature, with respect to the pressure, right? The transition can be of various things. So first write down types of ecotone. First, halocline. Halocline. Dash. The layer of waters, the layers of water, layers of water where salinity changes, where salinity changes rapidly, rapidly with the depth, rapidly with the depth. Acha Neha, tell me, the salinity concentration will be higher in the delta or higher in the estuaries? Right, क्योंकि delta में क्या है आपकी fresh water river. Example estuaries. Hello climate write down. Example estuaries. Second, thermocline. Second, thermocline. Thermo मतलब temperature. जहां पे भी wherever the word hello will be used, even in your MCQ there will be salt concentration. ठीक है, जैसे कि हेलोफाइल्स या हेलोबैक्टीरियाज, those bacteria who can live in a very high or extreme salt concentration. Thermocline, write down. It is a layer of water. It is a layer of water where temperature changes rapidly. Where temperature changes rapidly with the depth. With the depth, such as in aquatic ecosystem or water body. In aquatic ecosystem or water body. In the vertical layers. In the vertical layers. Temperature varies. Temperature varies due to penetration of sunlight. Due to penetration of sunlight at a certain depth of water. At a certain depth of water, which impacts the different types of communities, the different types of communities at different depth, at different depth. As the upper layer, as the upper layer consist those community slash biodiversity which can tolerate high temperature, high temperature, while the deeper water organisms, while the deeper water organisms lives in lives in colder, colder and high pressure areas. And high pressure areas. Next, pycnocline. Next, pycnocline. What is pycnocline? It's a density. Okay, write down. Layers of water. Layers of water where density changes rapidly. Where density changes rapidly with the depth. With the depth. First off. First, density is influenced by both both temperature and salinity. Temperature and salinity. Example. Example. Organisms live in the marshy or swampy areas have different adaptability of density tolerance, of density variation, because of high salt concentration, Last, chemocline. A layer of water where the concentration of specific chemicals such as oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, etc. changes abruptly Example. Upper layer of water body has aerobic life where the bottom dwellers generally are anaerobic. Next, make the heading edge effect. How many pages we have written about that ecotone? Almost 1.5, 2, almost 2.5. So even in that, if you are remembering half of the content, still you have the enough content to write in 10 pages, है ना, with the diagram and all. So make the heading edge effect. A number of special population can become adapted specifically to a specific area as ecotone slash transition area with the dominant and specific characteristics specifically adaptable specifically adaptable to the ecotone, to the ecotone, combining both, combining both biotic and abiotic factor, combining both biotic and abiotic factor. Full stop. These specific characteristics, these specific characteristics can be combined effect of both communities, can be combined effect of both communities, simply or otherwise unsuitable unsuitable as a dominant species in these two different areas, in these two different areas. Full stop. In ecology, in ecology, the edge effects, the edge effects are changes, are changes in the population or community, are changes in the population or community structure, structure that occurs at the boundary of at the boundary of two or more habitats, two or more habitats. Full stop. Areas with small habitat fragments, area with small habitat fragments exhibit specially pronounced edge effects, specially pronounced edge effects that may extend throughout the range throughout the range or limited in a specific range or limited in a specific range. Full stop. As the edge effect increases, as the edge effect increases, the boundary habitat allows for greater biodiversity. Full stop. Next point last. This potential for the ecotone, this potential for the ecotones which acts as a habitat, which acts as a habitat are the best suitable environment, are the best suitable environment for a species, for a species found neither in adjoining major communities, found neither in adjoining major communities, is called the edge effect, is called the edge effect. Okay, Next, simple. समझ आ गया edge effect? The specific type of characteristics because of development of the different or specific kind of areas that are simple edge effect. Ecotone में whatever the changes are occurring because of the certain effect, that effects are called edge effect. इसमें सिर्फ एक ही division लिखना है, simple. Types of edge effect. Types of edge effect. Inherent, perforated, convoluted, just इतना ही है. Types of edge effect. First, inherent. First, inherent. Natural feature. Natural feature. Stabilizes. Stabilizes. The border location. The border location between two different ecosystem. Between two different ecosystem. Second, induced. Second, induced. Transient natural disaster. Sorry, disaster नहीं. Transient natural disturbances. Transient natural disturbances. Example, fire, flood, drought. Transient natural disturbances. Example, fire, flood, drought, or human related activities. Or human related activities such as deforestation, land clearing, such as deforestation, land clearing, comma. Subject borders to successional changes over time, to successional changes over times. Next, wider edge effect. A large distance separates the borders of, a large distance separates, मतलब significant distance इसमें है wider में. A significant or large distance separates the borders of two clearly and purely definable habitats based upon their physical conditions and vegetations in between there exists a large transition region. Fourth one, narrow. One habitat abruptly ends. And another begins. Example, agricultural field. Fifth one, convoluted. What is a convolution? Where we have heard the convoluted word. देखो, these are just opposite to each other. Inherent मतलब natural, induced मतलब something induced, forcefully. Wider matlab this is very large because of the effect. In narrow matlab ek one changes abruptly so that it become ended the other one. So perforated something we know that the port like perforated है ना, something having that little bit intrusion. जैसे कि suppose that there's a big thing, जैसे कि perforation in that skin of the or the perforata porifera. Porifera, what we say, there's a not continuous body, but there's a perforation. That's a kind of hole. So convoluted, where we have heard that convoluted foldings, जैसे कि internal intestinal fold in the form of that villi. ठीक है, that is a convoluted. Just opposite of each other. That is convoluted. The border is non-linear. Foldings are kind of. The border is non-linear as a division of habitat. As a division of habitat. Perforated. Perforated. The border has gaps. The border has gaps which host different species and helps in assisting the other habitat. Example, coniferous trees in higher altitude. Example, coniferous trees in higher altitude. Convoluted में can we write about the epiphytes? Right? What are the epiphytes? Epiphytes are proper your angiosperm. Right? Of course. What is epiphyte? Like, tell me whatever you know. नो इश्यूज, दिस कंप्लीटली फाइन है, बिल्कुल टेंशन नहीं लेनी है, ठीक है. सो एपीफाइट जो आपके हेल्प करके किसी और ट्रीज पे ग्रो करते हैं. Yes, scrolling plant climbers, better can say that, right? They just grow with the help of, yes, very good Manisha. So they just grow with the help of the support of the other. So suppose that if you're talking about the forest ecosystem, so forest ecosystem mein we see that different types of, suppose that bryophytes, then pteridophytes, then herbs, then shrubs, then algae and all. फिर हम लोग बात करते हैं फॉरेस्ट प्रॉपर ट्री. तो एपीफाइट्स को ग्रो करने के लिए they required a good nutrition. ऐसा नहीं कि वो कहीं पे भी grow कर जाएंगे. They cannot go into the less fertile area. ठीक है? But so actually they belonging to the good community. But if there will not be any kind of support, that means they are a kind of the convoluted. They have that specific transition effect between the, like इनका growth जो है वो तो actually algae type का है ना? But because they are growing habitat is required the different forest type of climate system. So they are the kind of convoluted. समझ आ गया? Ecotone और edge effect में any doubt? Manisha? Neha? Any doubt? Okay, chalo. Next we are making the topic of biodiversity. Biodiversity say there can be different level of question. First, what is biodiversity? Second, biodiversity hotspot. Third, like various question. Even when we talk about the what is a biodiversity, bio means organism, diversity means variation. Simple. That's the way we covered the syllabus. Okay? Bio means organism, diversity means variation. So when we talk about the biodiversity, actually in the zoology sense, we specifically talk about that species. Why species? Because species is the basic unit of classification, right? How you can differentiate one organism to another organism, such as because of the different species. जैसे कि even if you talk about the human and monkey are the different species, ठीक है? या फिर maybe any two can be, you can think they are the different species. तो जनरली जब हम लोग बायो में या जोलॉजी में हम लोग कवर करते हैं तो हम लोग स्पीसीज को कंसीडर करते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द डिफरेंट बायोडाइवर्सिटीज. जैसे कि सपोज इफ वी टॉक अबाउट द बायोडाइवर्सिटी ऑफ दिस क्लास कैन बी वेरी, जैसे कि द ह्यूमन इज आल्सो देयर, द माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म आल्सो देयर. दैट मींस specific type of climate can support the different species, even that species are at the different specification, ठीक है? But when we talk in the sense of the ecology, we talk about that biodiversity at the level of 3. फर्स्ट हम लोग बात करते हैं जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी की. फर्स्ट वी टॉक अबाउट दैट जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी. Second, we talk about species diversity. Second, we talk about species diversity. Okay? And third, we talk about ecological species. Ecological diversity. देखो, it is just the way to understand the diversity. Ultimately, it's all about the species. What is genetic diversity? जैसे कि suppose that if we have seen that dog, ठीक है? So dog is an animal. Suppose that if I tell you what is the scientific name of the dog, you simply say the name of the scientific dog. So that is a species. ठीक है? Dog की एक species है. But then we call the dog of the suppose that Labrador. Labrador is also dog. Then we call the German Shepherd. Then we call the German Shepherd. Then we call the Indian breed dog. Then we call the Chihuahua. Then we call the Tibetan Mastiff. But there are all of the is dog only. Then what is the difference? The difference is about the genetic material, their genetic content, the genetic variation. Okay. So ecology may we cover the different types of biodiversity. As we shift to the evolution, इसी diversity का we'll talk about the reason. Okay. Now if we talk about suppose that species diversity, जैसे कि what is the basic concept of the species?
Individuals of the same
Species in talked in very simple language. Just need to know that you have the concept. Manisha, what is the basic concept of species? Yes, tell me.
individual living in a particular area.
Okay, how can you say that these are the two organisms which are of the same species?
By their morphological similarities.
Okay, Manisha, what is? How can you say that these two organisms are of the same species? Okay. MCQ का क्वेश्चन है आपके प्रीलिम्स का, है ना? ये स्पीसीज का कॉन्सेप्ट इज वेरी बेसिक. इट्स नॉट ओनली द जियोलॉजी, इट्स अबाउट द बेसिक साइंस आल्सो. स्पीसीज का बच्चा बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट है यहाँ that species, the two individuals of the same species can interbreed with each other, right? Habitat, suppose that if we talk about the forest में आपके lion भी रहते हैं, forest में आपके tigers भी रहते हैं, but they are not the same species. The basic concept of the species are that they can interbreed with each other. That means suppose that if we talk about the cat family, चलो cat family की बात नहीं करते, suppose that humans या ape में जो आपके species होंगे, only they can produce the babies, or the better can say species are the concept in which the two individuals can interbreed with each other in the natural environment, interbreed with each other in the natural environment and can produce the fertile baby and can produce the fertile offspring. Yes ma'am, interbreed. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Interbreed with each other and can produce the fertile baby or the offspring. जैसे कि why we need to say that natural environment? देखो example आपका क्या है? Horse and donkey, or better say the mule. ठीक है? Donkey, whatever you can say, they look like each other, right? Even you know that horse का evolution आपके paper 2 syllabus में है, evolution of horses. So when we cover the evolution of the horses, there will be the two major thing. The one will be the size and the second will be their dactyl, मतलब their limbs. है ना? When we cover that equinicus, मतलब multiple species. So in that one species, they are coming with that donkey-like structures too. So can we naturally see कि horse और mule का baby है? They can fertile, they can interbreed with each other. Have we seen that? No. That means they are belonging from the different. Yes, they can live in the same environment also, same habitat also. But the core concept of the species is about they cannot interbreed with each other because they do not belong to the same species. Okay? But again, human can do anything. Human can do anything, of course. So in that, what we have done that male horse plus female donkey का हमने क्या करा है? ऑफस्प्रिंग प्रोड्यूस करा है, right? And that named as a hini, right? ऐसे ही we have one more example that male lion plus female tiger. Have we ever seen that naturally they are fertilizing with each other? No. But human has produced the offspring named liger. Okay? And that is a very big thing. ठीक है, दैट मीन्स हाउ डू वी, बट हमने क्या देखा है, जो लाइगर और हिनी है दे आर नॉट नेचुरली, या दे आर नॉट स्टेराइल, लाइक दे आर नॉट प्रोड्यूस कंटिन्यूअसली, ठीक है, हमने देखा है ऐसे। बट अभी इसमें आ जाओ, वेयर वी वर जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी में। सो इफ यू गो टू द मार्केट टू बाय अ पपी, it is a very high chances that you will get the hybrid of maybe the Labrador and the Golden Retriever. समझ आया? Because अभी भी they were belonging to the same species. Yes, they have the genetic diversity because of different climatic adaptation, but species अभी भी उनकी same थी, and that they are fertile. They further can grow. उनको fertile करने, suppose that if I bought a puppy and that is a kind of the hybrid of the Golden Retriever and the Labrador, ऐसा नहीं है कि that particular animal can not fertile, because वहां पे species level variation ही आ गया है. So when the evolution, but there's a difference, right? Suppose that if we talk about the example of goat, again I have given that example multiple times. Suppose that the goat, ठीक है, so goat सबसे पहले आपके कहाँ, they used to live on that, सबसे पहले आपका grassland था. So all goats used to live on that grassland, used to have that eats and everything like that. Because of some evolutionary maybe changes, a kind of clash has occurred between the continent and so many whatever the reason, and यहाँ पे आपका क्या हो गया, माउंटेन डेवलप हो गया, ठीक है. सो नाउ यहाँ पे क्या हो गया, देयर विल बी द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ रिसोर्सेस एंड मे बी द सर्वाइबिलिटी. सो यहाँ पे अगेन आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू, ऑफ कोर्स आई एम गोइंग टू रिपीट दैट. सो यहाँ पे देयर विल बी द कांसेप्ट ऑफ द नेचुरल सिलेक्शन, दैट इज अ मेजर कांसेप्ट ऑफ द इवोल्यूशन. नेचुरल सिलेक्शन इज talking about that mutation, evolution, everything. Natural selection is a very core theory, it's an umbrella term, right? So some of the organism who, matlab, because of that they either they can die or they die their population, they can just wipe off their population. But if they want to survive, they have to do two things. They need to adapt. That kind of adaptation can be because of the various factors. Maybe that can be the mutation, जैसे कि स्नेक्स में लिम्स का गायब होना, ठीक है, दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ म्यूटेशन. द म्यूटेशन ऑफ एसएक्सएल जीन है ना, सडनली, बिकॉज दैट वाज नॉट इन द यूज. सो सम ऑफ द गुड्स, यहाँ पे क्या हो गया, ग्रास का स्कैसिटी हो गया. सो सम ऑफ द माउंटेन ट्राइड टू, यहाँ पे उन्होंने देखा, यहाँ पे दिस स्पेसिफिक काइंड ऑफ वेजिटेशन, some of the mountain tried to escape, tried to like climb on that mountain or something, and they were converted into the mountainous goat. So in that current scenario, if we are trying to fertile the mountain goat and the goat, can they are fertile normally situation? नहीं, because but first level पे तो change आपका कहीं ना कहीं genetic पे या कहीं ना कहीं large mutation या कुछ तो ऐसा आया होगा ना, so that ultimately they become the different species now. ठीक है, यहाँ पे आपका different species है और genetic diversity आपका अलग. समझ आ गया? No, they don't have, है ना. यहाँ पे देखो, when we talk about the evolution, now when we talk about this biological changes, ये आपका बहुत large level पे. Suppose that some of अच्छा देखो, mutation जो होता है, जैसे आपको पता है ये जो आपका प्रॉब्लम है, लाइक एक आपकी डिजीज है, उसका जो सोल्यूशन है वो आपका एक्चुअली म्यूटेशन है बिकॉज ऑफ द इवोल्यूशनरी प्रोसेस, ठीक है, उसको भी कभी लोग बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे. सो आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू टेल कि इफ द चेंजेस विल बी एट दैट लार्ज लेवल, so that two organism cannot fertile or cannot interbreed with each other, they will be the different species. That's it. Okay, next we are going to talk about, of course I'll dictate, next we are going to talk about that ecological diversity. Ecology मतलब there's a kind of ecosystem, obviously. यहाँ पे further, वैसे तो somewhere in, suppose that question if comes like biodiversity, first there's a two ways to write the answer. आप ऐसे करके लिख लो on the basis of some of the factors. Second factor आप लिख लो, that is that is the particular again diversity of the biodiversity, that is called the alpha, beta and gamma. There's a different diversity, but I would suggest the best way to write that ecological diversity is further divided into alpha diversity, beta diversity and gamma biodiversity. ठीक है, what is alpha, beta and gamma समझ लेते हैं, फिर डिक्टेट करके नोट्स बना लेंगे. देखो, ecology मतलब a kind of area, a kind of ecosystem where the biotech multiple factor used to live. ठीक है, so when we are dividing the eco diversity into alpha, beta and gamma one, देखो, suppose that this is a big area forest का, ठीक है, फॉरेस्ट का एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया जहां पे देयर इज अ वेरी गुड क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशन, अच्छा सन आ रहा है, सब कुछ अच्छा आ रहा है. सपोज दैट इफ आई वांट टू सी not over the over, but I can see that there's a difference of species richness. अभी हम लोग इसमें भी ये भी कवर करेंगे, species richness and species evenness, Simpson and Sanson index. Suppose that in that area I am clearly can able to see that यहाँ का जो biodiversity it is less और यहाँ का biodiversity is high. So that is about that alpha biodiversity. That means the number of species Either they are living insects too, the annelida too, the worms too, the arthropods too, right? Maybe the small amphibians too, some of the reptiles too. That means एक आपका ये कलर है, ये suppose that amphibians हो गया, ठीक है? Then this is another species, then this is another species, ठीक है? That means and suppose that this is another species. That means number of species living in a segment of the area, that is simple called the alpha biodiversity. No matter what. ठीक? चलो. Next, if we talk about the beta diversity. Suppose that now I want, because I can see the clearly. अभी I have seen that एक ये area है और एक ये area है. ठीक है? Now if I am seeing, suppose that ये white color के organism इसमें भी पाए जा रहे हैं, ये white color के organism इसमें भी पाए जा रहे हैं. Fine. Now I have seen that ये इसमें भी है, ये इसमें भी है, ये इसमें है. ठीक है? But what is the difference between both? Yes, that is a beta biodiversity. Simple. Beta biodiversity, how to calculate? Comparison होता है हमेशा beta diversity. That means that number of species which are common, उसको consider नहीं करेंगे. That is a kind of species richness. ठीक है? Species richness हालांकि इसका भी concept है. But when we, what is a species richness? Simply, species richness is a concept that multiple, suppose that this area, this classroom is a very good for the number of species. ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे बहुत लोग रह रहे हैं. But if I will compare this classroom and another classroom, then it will be the beta diversity. How many numbers of organism or the species, not organism but better the species, are not common? That is your called the species. That is called the beta biodiversity. Simple. ठीक है? Next, if we talk about that gamma diversity को हम लोग particular, what is the difference between that alpha? Gamma diversity is all about that alpha. What is the difference? Alpha diversity, when we see a part of the ecosystem, and gamma diversity we see a total of ecosystem. That's it. समझ आ गया? Alpha, beta and gamma. Manisha, any doubt in it? बीटा में डाउट है? Okay, no issues. देखो, what we can see, suppose that take the another color, जैसे कि ये मान लो, ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे how many number of species, these colors are representing different numbers, ठीक है? So suppose that if I am trying to count 1, है ना? Okay, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, and this is a 4. 4 numbers of species, okay? What is here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. ठीक है? So here in that particular ecosystem there's a 2 different zones. ठीक है? In that one zone there's a 4 numbers of species only, while in the other there's a 6 number of species. That means this particular area has something specific, which can something specific type of climatic factor, maybe the biotic or abiotic factor, which can support the maximum number of population or the maximum number of species in that area. So that is the difference, like which species are common, उसको consider नहीं करना है. But why we need to see the common? Because of to see the more number of species. समझ आया अभी? That 4 minus 6 is equal to 2. That is a beta. It depends on the, yes बच्चा, it depends. It not only depends on the number of species, Manisha. Number of species तो यहाँ पे भी है. It depends on the comparative number of species. Suppose that again, जैसे कि you are sitting in one of the room, वहाँ पे suppose that if you will try to find out, suppose that you have started cleaning, maybe आपको छोटू सा insects मिले, आपको maybe mosquito मिले, आपको maybe housefly मिले, then you will find the lepisma also, then of course you are the human also, then there are insects, that maybe ant also. So that means in your number, in your room there are the 5 species. But if you try to figure out, ये आपका alpha है, that is your alpha. But if you go to the kitchen में ये सारे आपको मिलेंगे, obviously, ठीक है? Because it's a common ecosystem. But you will find maybe the mice too, ठीक है? Maybe the house lizard too. That means यहाँ पे 5 है और यहाँ पे 7 है. So when we are trying to complete, what यहाँ पे 7 क्यों है? Manisha, why there's a kitchen में there's a 7? because the kitchen also support a specific kind of food resources, right? That means something is extra which is supporting the more number of species. That's it, is a beta diversity. Beta diversity is 7 minus 5 is equal to 2. That's it. Got it now, Manisha? यहाँ समझ आ गया पक्का? चलो, we'll dictate it in the next class. ठीक है? Thank you guys.